Hello everyone, we're continuing our series of talks. With us in the studio is Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello everyone. And our topic for today is family and marriage. Obviously from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, and as we know, Kabbalah teaches that marriage was not created by man artificially, but it's something that appeared as a result of our natural qualities. Right, animals also have that to some extent. Right, in the animal world, marriage also exists in a certain form. And my question is, why does the connection of two opposites give birth to some new third thing? Well, we see that to the measure to which the elements of nature are more developed, the harder it is for them to combine, mix together. But when they do combine, they give birth to much more individual, developed, unique qualities. And so if we're talking about the nature of chemical substances, that's one thing. Biological, that's something else. Plants, that's another thing. And in the animal world altogether, and we also are partially a part of the animal world. It's said that on the primitive level, elements are undivided. There are even such animals where the male and female parts exist in the same body. And then there are those that can easily change their sex from one to the other according to what's needed for the continuation of the species. So it all smoothly flows and shifts from one to the other and back. But the higher an object in nature is, the more complicated this process becomes. But one way or another, we don't meet any special connection in terms of spirit, morals, habits, etc. among animals. It's only among people. And if we're talking about people, then if in ancient natural societies there wasn't any special separation, there were no special problems, and altogether, suppose in countries until not long ago, a single village had no problem in making a couple between a man and a woman because everyone knew each other, everyone understood who's who, how they live, how they eat, what life is altogether, meaning everything was very similar. And therefore, there were no problems. And also, the characters were very similar. And somewhere, starting with the 19th century, well, depending on what social levels, social class in society we're talking, if it's the elites, then obviously it was very evident also before. And among the common folk, somewhere starting with the 19th century and on, began very serious differences according to social class, etc., etc. And there appeared a problem of how will the male and female parts pair between them. I read someplace that about 150 or 200 years ago, a person who lived in a village, his entire life he didn't meet so many people as a contemporary person today meets in one day different people. Obviously. So, a family is the connection of two opposites. Yes. So, in order to build a good family, you need to find someone that is your opposite? No, not necessarily opposite. Why? Oh, for a better connection? No. The connection isn't made of opposites. Depends on what level. If we're talking on the level, if we're talking about the human level, meaning on the animal level, then here you don't need any experiments. To the contrary, there needs to be similarity. Right, the closer, the better. And if we're talking about development, because on the animal level, there can't be any development. So if we're talking about development, then there you already need opposites. So from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, if people want to unite, come together, they need to be as similar as possible to one another. That the families will be similar, the parents, the language, everything possible. And if we look at an entire nation or humanity as a family, then there, to the contrary. There, yes, if we're talking about everyone coming together into one family, like the system of Adam HaRishon, there, obviously, the greater the pluralism, the mutual alienation, but with the understanding that we need to unite above all problems, connect above all problems and differences, then by that society lifts itself. Another thing that Kabbalah says is that it is impossible to keep the institution of marriage nowadays forcefully, by pressure, but it's necessary to look for additional goals. What are these? In our time, you can't keep it through religion, through marriage, that they were wed someplace by some religious representatives. I also think the economic factor somehow still keeps people together. Yeah, and also, society isn't something small. It's practically the entire world, so they don't care who'll think about them, what, here, there. As a rule, they don't live with their parents, they're not with them. They don't live in the same environment in which they grew up. And actually what you get here is a kind of independence. That the young couple is independent of the previous generation, of that society that they were born in, and thus they completely detach and create their family on a completely new level. And here obviously they don't depend on the parents or nothing. So here appear completely different, necessary ties between them. And if these ties do not exist, then as we see, the marriage doesn't hold. So what goals can keep future marriages together? It's not common children or common property. It's something that is above all that. That could only be the meaning of life. That is above life. That this person, this partner, my husband or wife, with the kids and everything else, I need it. I need them and it all, because that is the realm in which I prepare myself for the higher goal. And if that does not exist, the family won't exist. So it's a dramatic situation. On the one hand, our ego is constantly developing, destroying the family. Right. Today, a family is only one of the options. Right, because previously what kept together the family in the past was sheer egoistic interest. Right, today you can exist without a family. On the other hand, the breaking up of a marriage is counter to the laws of nature, because nature made us this way, where the family cell is the minimum environment in which a person can develop. But, on the other hand, it is precisely our nature that destroys it today. So what is it all headed toward? For us to rise to the next level. In the future, there will be a family nonetheless. The family will be something completely different. Meaning, the main question in the family will be, how do we spiritually ascend? Because for no other goal can I burden myself with this. Stand another person next to me, constantly caring for them, for the children, etc. I'm willing to, so to speak, pay for the sins of my youth, that I had a few children, and I'm putting it bluntly on purpose. But that's it. But it's not a family. In order to keep the family, I need some kind of higher value. Not for the sake of the children. No one will live for the sake of the children. If today you still have such, then in a generation or two, you won't. So, if I understand what you're saying, in Kabbalistic terms, without the purpose of revealing the Creator, the family will not exist. Right. People will have no motivation to be together. Yes. technology will be on such a level that there will be no need for it. In all cases, from all sides, what will come to is that a person will have no need for another person altogether, not even physiologically. None. Not even physiologically? Right. This is what we're headed toward. That there will be different unisex of different kinds and whatnot. There are already such things in Japan, that people prefer games to sex, of course. So, from what we understand from Kabbalah is that the environment that will support such an opinion is very important, that only the Creator, the revelation of the Creator can be the motivation. But this environment needn't be like in a small village, where public opinion of the uneducated crowd puts pressure on the young couple, forcing them this way to build a family and exist that way. So it's a process, educational process. You need to explain it all to a person from young age, the difference between the male and female inclinations, and explain eventually what is the Creator. That's also not simple. We'll have to explain all these things, educate people, but precisely thanks to this education, we'll return to the family, but in a different form already. We see that we're exiting a state where we need a family. We see that in the past, people at the ages of 16, 17, 18 already thought about building a family, and they did. And today you don't have that. The tendency is clear to everyone. Statistics shows it and everything. One more thing I'd like to ask about, from the perspective of Kabbalah, a family as the basis for connection between people, is this the beginning of a person's spiritual development? A person will spiritually grow especially from his family. If we're talking about a Kabbalistic group, that's something completely different. We're talking about the masses. If we're talking about the masses, then it's the family as the basis, as the foundation. Can we say that the family is a model where I positively relate to my wife, my children? Not only that I relate positively, but the family will be that model, that group in which I spiritually develop. Besides that, I obviously also have a group in which I develop along with men like myself. For women, a women's group in which they develop too. But we realize that in the group we as if receive the elation, inspiration, spiritual charge, and realize it in the family between ourselves. So these two types of environment will exist. The male and female groups, the man and the woman, their children between them, and this will practically be how society will be constructed. Nature gave us love, natural love for our children, in order for us to learn to behave the same way toward other people. Yes and no. Also, the love towards children will change a lot, and it's already changing. Today, people are already relating differently to children. All throughout the generations, there's care and concern and love and everything, but it's all changing. Since our desire, our character is changing, the method of interacting with the surrounding world, the understanding of the world, and thus obviously toward children as well as a part of the world, our attitude is changing towards that too. I heard you say that it is natural for a person that a person instinctively experiences his first love, falling in love at the age of 12 more or less. Then he experiences love towards his children and all that in order to feel on himself the correct model of how to relate to your fellow man, to all of humanity, and from there to the Creator. This how it is, this how it turns out. Is it a similar relation or something else? Well, you can't say. It's each time on a different level. Each time on a different level. If we're talking about a kind of juvenile love or love towards your children or family, then that's natural love that exists in every created being, and you only need to develop it. But When we're talking about love toward other people, strangers, those that are beyond the boundaries of my ego includes a certain field that's around me. This, mine, this, that, and what's mine, I love, I cherish, etc. And what's beyond the boundaries of my ego, that I do not cherish. And to the contrary, maybe I don't even need it, and I don't even want to see it close to myself. So here you have to work on yourself. Here I already have to see that which is outside of my ego, that practically outside of my ego what exists is the Creator. And in the measure to which I start relating to what's outside of my ego, to that measure I relate to the Creator. And thus I need to define my attitude, my relation toward the Creator, and from that to define my relation towards everything that's outside of my ego. So if a person has a big ego, then his framework, it shrinks. He doesn't even feel his family as his own. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that he can't go beyond the boundaries of his ego. Maybe actually this way he's being pushed towards that. He's given the recognition of evil. Meaning, our advancement, it depends on contraction and expansion. Inhale, exhale. And that a person has a big ego and he doesn't feel anyone besides himself, even though that maybe he doesn't even acknowledge it. But practically, this pushes him toward that he will more deeply attain the Creator as a result. The greatest Kabbalists, they were big egoists before their correction. Can we say that actually the family is necessary only in order for us to learn how to correct the give, bestow? Because in the family, obviously we give. Obviously it's egoistic bestowal, it's not altruism. But at least I get some kind of model of proper behavior. Well, there is something like that. At least the family demonstrates this condition to me that if a person is felt by me as someone close, then I'm willing to relate to them as to myself. Well, in a proper, ideal family. Yeah. So the entire problem is to feel every person as someone that's close to you. And this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah gives us. The higher light simply creates such opportunities in us. I also heard you say that we have 5 types of desires. We won't go over them now. And because of that, turns out that I see a part of my desires as existing outside of myself, and I feel them as foreign, and a part of my desires I see as my own. And obviously I care for them, I care for their fulfillment, etc. But actually these are all my desires, and my real desires are those that are outside of me. The entire world, whatever I can see, it's all my desire. I don't see anything else. I see myself from the inside. Only some or part I see outside of myself and part inside of myself. What I see outside of myself are as if strangers. Strangers, but for me, they're the most important part. So in that, where's the family? The family is in between, on the boundary between I and the external world, that it's actually like a transitional link between acknowledging, attaining the external world as myself. Who needs to be primary in the family? Primary in the family needs to be the medium between the husband and wife, called Creator. It's man and woman, or husband and wife, Creator between them, and he's primary. And before he's revealed, I don't know, a police cop probably. But how do you define? How else can you define who's primary? And why does there need to be someone who's primary? There needs to be an orientation toward mutuality, cooperation, connection, mutual inclusion, that we need to achieve a state where we don't even need to talk. We understand everything without words. We support one another and communicate in our thoughts. This is the state that we need to come to. And it's not bad. Because like the wife can sometimes rebuke her husband, "You're not talking to me," etc. Because a man, he's more used to keeping quiet, and a woman is more used to talking. But really, it's not so. The best state is where they don't even have a need for any kind of communication, not even tactile. They simply feel each other. But that's already like one organism. Like I don't have to talk with myself or to myself. Yeah, the same way I feel my partner, and this is how I also feel my kids, and this is how I feel my family. And thus it says, Ishto Adam kegufo, meaning a man's wife is like his own body. You can so much so feel. And that's why there's this instruction that in order to really reveal the Creator, you need to have some foreign person, not the family, because on that level, it's felt as one whole. Only with the help of the family, you can't reach connection with the Creator. Meaning it's possible, but it will be minimum. No, I can't even imagine that. It's very complicated. A person needs a healthy ego that brings him out of himself. He needs that same inner ego where he depicts his family or those people that are close, so that there will be a difference between these and those, external and internal, and then he can orient himself. He can build models of relations with others, and this way he can advance. What about things in the family, like envy, cheating? What does Kabbalah say about that? How to relate to it? Well, it's natural. Since we're both animals and humans to some extent, so it's obvious. But the main thing is, if our higher connection will determine everything else, then there will be no problems. We'll always understand each other. And now, everything's held on intimidation. I'll get divorced, I'll bring the police, courts, things like that. I'll tell someone from the husband's side, the wife's side, physical intimidations, etc. Of course, these are kinds of deviations that you need to avoid. But until we achieve completion and a connection between the spiritual and the corporeal, the physical, then obviously all of these problems will continue. And by the way, also Kabbalists, meaning those who study Kabbalah that are working on their correction, will have these problems as well, and even more than others. So your solution to all types of problems is one: the revelation of the Creator. When He becomes revealed to a person, everything becomes clear. We even see it from our world, that there's nothing else left. Yeah, but it takes time. It doesn't matter, but you need to do something. To continue evolution, this crappy evolution as it is, that's leading us to nothing. No, I agree. Obviously, we can wait 20, 30 years, and even your entire life. Clearly. But until He becomes revealed, does Kabbalah give some kind of solution? To start working on it. To educate yourself all the time and understand that this is how we are, that I'm an animal, and if I study Kabbalah, maybe for a certain period of time, I'll even become a greater animal. As it says, Musif dat, Musif machov, meaning you add knowledge, you add pain. One's ego grows. Maybe he can't even deal with himself. He understands his problem, but he can't do anything about it. He corrects them on the spiritual level, but maybe he falls to the corporeal, earthly degree, but it's all a part of the path. You can't do anything about it. So you need to try, exert yourself. That's the way of evolution. See how evolution works. Comes a wave, rises, falls, disappears, another one comes, disappears, etc., etc. That's the way of evolution. We're not doing anything new here on our Kabbalistic path. We're only hastening time. And this is why we experience these kinds of whirlpools in life. Can we say that Kabbalah is the revelation of the true laws of nature only on the level of society? We're trying to solve all problems on the level of society, even to solve all the corporeal problems on the spiritual level. Because if they'll be resolved in matter, it'll take hundreds and hundreds of years. So you're saying, try, know in advance that it won't work until the Creator is revealed. Right. But nonetheless, each time it's a new step, and don't be afraid. That's the main thing. It's a narrow, narrow path, and the main thing is not to be afraid. Are there certain signs of the revelation of the Creator? When you start feeling inside yourself great, big, contradicting pushes, when you're being thrown from side to side, you don't understand what's happening with you. You do not recognize your next states. This is a sign of advancement. And the main thing are the descents, where a person feels that he has no hope, nothing, he doesn't understand anything, he's in a kind of fog, etc., and patiently goes through these states, studying, systematically being included in the group and everything that Kabbalah says. A few days go by and the world changes, etc. This is clear, this before he's revealed. But suppose this force is revealed in a person, he lives in the family, what happens? There it's the same. And the descents are even greater. He falls into this world and into a completely opposite to spirituality world that he already experienced. He couldn't even imagine that he might fall into such states again, and he ascends again and falls again and again and again. Necessarily, when he falls, he draws from our world another portion of ego in order to raise it to correction. I'm asking about the revelation of the Creator, and you're telling me about these ups and downs all the time. That is the revelation of the Creator. I can't want to reveal the Creator, only if I'll feel bad. Otherwise, why? Take any person, even our friends that are studying the spiritual method. Unless you seriously shake them up, so to speak, drop them, they won't aspire to go forward. A person is only under the influence of two forces. Okay, we'll talk about that separately. And therefore, it's very important in the family that the two will be spouses, so to speak. Spouses meaning friends. The closest friends that can help one another, that can complete each other, that can give each other a hint, take each other's responsibilities. Therefore, it's said that they're like one body. I heard you once say that the husband can tell his wife the most secret, no problem. He can tell his wife anything, well, depending what kind of relationship there's between them, but not to the friends in the group. Right. Next to last question. How to really build a family if only one of the spouses is studying, and that's the majority? In our times, we're in a transitional phase. What would you recommend if only one of them is studying and the other isn't? Not to try to... Don't drag your family into your problems if they're not on the same path as you. Quietly go through all your different states so they won't feel it. Give them the possibility to comfortably exist as much as possible. You'll have your own spiritual life, and with them you'll interact formally. So there are people that have a surrounding of like-minded people where they work, men's group, women's group, and there's also the family. And there are such people that don't have a spiritual family, but an ordinary, formal family. And it doesn't stand in the way of their spiritual advancement. No. And not to suppress the other side that doesn't want to study. By no means, there's no coercion in spirituality. What about relatives? You don't need to draw them into this at all. It's even good that they won't know about your studies. This I understand. I'm simply asking, how is it that there's a family? It comes from the spiritual system. It's like relative souls. Why specifically those people? Yeah, they're close. On a certain degree, they're nourished by you. You need to nourish them. You don't really need to care about them, but in a certain sense, you do need to care about them, and maybe it'll come over time, corporeally and spiritually. Kabbalah says that a person has to take care of his family. But what about the relatives? What kind of relations should he have with them? Aunts, uncles, grandparents? In our time, no. In our time, on the spiritual path, when we're already establishing ourselves, we're like the pioneers in this. So in the meantime, not yet. But later on, when the masses will come to this state, I think that the relations will align with spirituality. Okay, so we talked about family and marriage today. And maybe for those that joined us only now, some kind of instruction maybe. Organize your family first and foremost amongst us, among your friends, so that we'll all be as one family. And besides that, if you're lucky, then also to have a spiritual cell at home. But the main thing is between us. Without that, without being organized in attain, we will not be able to come out into the spiritual world. Thank you very much. Till next time, all the best.